On a day when Trayce Jackson-Davis still earns all Big Ten first team honors, we're left sitting here scratching our head at this conference once again.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Hoosiers, your one and only daily one-stop shop for everything IU athletics. I'm your host, as always, Jacob. I want to thank you guys for making us your first listen every single day. I want to thank you for those of you that have left the 5-star reviews or ratings, recently as well. Been a big help for us. Also need to thank FanDuel. The episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. We got all the Big Ten awards on Tuesday. Only this conference, man. There were a couple different Hoosiers honored. Not in maybe the ways we thought. We'll start off with the positives. Trayce Jackson-Davis. Let's just talk about his awards and not awards. He was named unanimous Big Ten first team, all Big Ten first team. Not a shock. He was obviously in the running for the player of the year. That not surprising. I mean, I think I speak for most IU fans when I would say that we all thought Trayce was the best player. I think he impacted the game in a lot more ways than Zach Edey did. But Zach Edey was really good. He was unstoppable in his own right. Make of it what you will. And just about any other year, Trayce Jackson-Davis is your player of the year. He wasn't this season. Doesn't change the fact that he's one of the best players in the country. He's going to be named to a number of All-American teams. He's already been named to the Sporting News first team All-American. That happened earlier this week. There's going to be a lot of them coming, but him and Edey both are going to earn this honor a lot. That's your all Big Ten first team for those watching on YouTube. It is Zach Edey, Trayce Jackson-Davis, Chris Murray of Iowa, and Jalen Pickett of Penn State were both on the coaches and media's team. There were a mixture with the coaches. Terrence Shannon earned the last spot. In the media, two guys shared the last spot, Boo Buie and Hunter Dickinson. I probably would have went Boo Buie myself here. Feel like Northwestern probably deserves some love. Hunter Dickinson was also really good. IU got a up close and personal look at that a couple times this season, and especially at the end of the season. But Boo Buie also, I mean, IU saw him hit a game winner that he committed an offensive foul on late on in the season as well. So there was talent in the Big Ten this year. I think either Buie, Dickinson, Shannon, he didn't play as well against IU this season, so it's hard to be a kind of neutral observer, but impressive seasons from all of them. That's not where the debate is. The debate is over the fact that Trayce Jackson-Davis was not your defensive player of the year, which honestly, I'll admit, I didn't even know that this was going to be a debate. I thought Trayce was going to run away with it. Two other people earned the award over him. Chase Adige and Caleb McConnell shared the award. No, just flat out no. There were not better defensive players than Trayce Jackson-Davis this season. I'm not having it. This is nonsense. This is wild. I earnestly did not think that this was something that was even up for consideration. Trayce has just been the best defensive player, one of the best defensive players in the country this season, let alone in the Big Ten. And it is mind-boggling that he is not the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. I can't even really make a justification for these two over Trayce. They have more steals is literally the only justification you can really make. Outside of that, no. Like simply straightforward no. There is nothing else you can argue, in my opinion, as to why they're better defenders than Trayce. Nobody was a better rim protector in the conference. Nobody kind of impacted the floor defensively more than Trayce did. Hell, Zach Edey, I think, probably had a better shout for Defensive Player of the Year than these two. These two are good perimeter defenders and both deserve to be on the all defensive team, which both were. But it, man, I just cannot really wrap my head around the idea that Trayce wasn't the Defensive Player of the Year. Like it is this conference something else. And it's voted on by a group of media and coaches, and I don't know, man. Here's your all defensive team. Again on the screen for those watching on YouTube: Trayce, Zach Edey, Chase Adij, Caleb McConnell, and Cliff Amori from Rutgers. Silly, man. Specifically for Trayce and Edey, Zach Osterman made a good point. They spend the entire year just getting the crap beaten out of them. This conference doesn't want to call fouls on to like help their post players and their stars. Whatever. It's what they love to do. Cool. Reward them at the end of the year for giving them Big Ten player or Defensive Player of the Year. It is nonsense that neither of these two guys got it. Whatever. I'll be sure to remember that one moving forward. But Trayce and Edey were your two best defenders this year in the Big Ten in that order. The Big Ten continues to do some silly nonsense. We didn't mention Jalen Hood-Schifino, but he did pick up a number of awards as well, including Big Ten Freshman of the Year. We'll talk about all the awards he earned and look at the rest of the Big Ten's awards here in a second. Before we do that, let's talk about today's sponsor, FanDuel. It's March, guys. There's no better time to be betting than during the NCAA tournament, during the conference tournaments. You guys know how crazy it gets. There's no better time to join FanDuel than right now as well. The no sweat first bet is where you can get up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from money line to point scores, threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a bigger chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. So don't miss your chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Big thanks to all you guys for making us your first listen every day. Make sure you check out our brand new podcast, Locked On College Basketball. Everything you need to know about college basketball in one place. Plus, hear from big name experts, insiders, coaches, and players. Locked On College Basketball, available on YouTube and wherever you get podcasts. Let's talk about Jalen Hood-Schifino. He racked up a number of awards as well, including most notably Big Ten Freshman of the Year. That one, another one that felt like a runaway. Won't be honest, when Trayce didn't win Defensive Player of the Year, nothing felt like it was a guarantee, although I believe Jalen was named before that. But Jalen, very well deserved, easily the best freshman in the conference this season, and stepped up in a huge way for Indiana throughout the year. None bigger than that Purdue game where he sealed the award on that night, I think, putting up that historic performance against the Boilermakers so IU could sweep the series. He was also named to the Big Ten All-Freshman team. Jalen, Jet Howard, Bryce Sensabaugh, Connor, I'm going to butcher that last name, Esigen, I'm sorry, and Braden Smith of Purdue, Sensabaugh of Ohio State, and I'm sure many of you remember Jet Howard from Michigan after Sunday. So those guys are your Big Ten all-freshman team. I don't think anybody was particularly close to knocking off Jalen in this one. And to that point, also was named to the second team all Big Ten by the media. Coaches did not vote him there. The coaches, it appears, didn't vote him on the third team either. I'm not certain. This voting is a little confusing. But here's your second team. Tyson Walker, Jameer Young, both are named to the team, the coaches and the media. The coaches also named Chase Adige and Derek Walker. The media named Jalen Hood-Schifino and Cliff Amori. Well earned for Jalen. He was one of the 10 best players, 11 best players, whatever it ended up being in the conference this season. Well earned by him. And just a big day for him. I forgot to mention, here's a little bit of trivia for you. We'll try to do this on a recorded podcast. Jalen Hood-Schifino is the first freshman of the year for IU since who? I'll give you a couple seconds to guess, and I'll give you a couple hints along the way. I will tell you that Cody won it. I will tell you that Eric Gordon won it. I probably should have done that in the other order. Eric Gordon won it. Cody won it. It's somebody since Cody before Jalen Hood-Schifino. Your answer, 3, 2, 1, Noah Vonleh. I don't think many people would have remembered that one. I think we all tried to forget the Noah Vonleh era, but he was Big Ten Freshman of the Year. I went back and looked. That was a brutal year for the Big Ten, and he was just kind of the best of the bunch for the freshmen. So fair play him. Your third team all Big Ten, Matthew Mayer of Illinois was both coaches and media. Cody Buffkin and Jet Howard by the coaches. AJ Hogard, Bryce Sensabaugh, and Philip Rabracha of Iowa, Ohio State, and Michigan State, respectively, were the rest of the third team selection. So it was just Trayce, just Jalen. Nobody else earns any kind of honors for the Hoosiers. Nobody else was even named an honorable mention. I don't know if that's surprising or not. I don't know if there was anybody I would throw in there. There wasn't really a consistent guy. Trey Galloway was probably your best bet, but no votes for him for any of the first, second, or third team. But Trayce and Jalen rack up the awards. There is a Big Ten sportsmanship award for each school. Miller Kopp did win that one for the Hoosiers. So hats off to him. It was surprisingly Chris Collins is coach of the year. Again, I thought Matt Painter, like as much as it pains us to say it, it seemed like Matt Painter was the runaway. I mean, nobody remotely predicted Purdue to run away with the Big Ten title like they did. Chris Collins fielded a competitive team for the first time in a while and gets Big Ten Coach of the Year. Matt Painter, Purdue fans have some gripes there as well. Nothing this conference does make sense. There's just so many complaints I have about it, but hey, I mean, if Purdue's getting screwed out of awards too, then I'm not going to complain. Your sixth man of the year is only voted by the coaches, and they picked Peyton Sandfort of Iowa. So hats off to all those guys for those awards. Let me know what your complaints are. Am I off base with the Trayce winning Defensive Player of the Year debate? Who would you guys have picked for some of your awards as well? Let me know in the comments on YouTube. Let me know over on Twitter. Put it in a review. Wherever you guys want to put that, let me know, and we can talk about that maybe later this week as well. Big Ten tournament starts today with the first two kind of play-in games. Let's get a little bit of a preview of what this tournament will hold for the Hoosiers moving forward. Take a quick look at this bracket and who the Hoosiers could be playing on Friday. We'll do all that here in just a moment. The Big Ten tournament, some kind of curse for the Hoosiers. Historically, man, it is it's I don't know what it is about this tournament. Both the men's and women's teams seem to have broke that curse last year. But after what the women did this year, do you really feel like the curse is broken? Because I certainly do not. Um, they, the women's team fell to Ohio State. We talked about that earlier in the week. The men's team, I mean, they are perfectly set up for what could be a good run. It's this conference is such a crapshoot that I'm not going to bank on it. Interesting notes: IU trivia, IU basketball trivia on Twitter, kind of summarize how much IU has struggled in the Big Ten tournament. IU's historical record in the Big Ten tournament is 15-24. That's since 1998. For reference, IU's regular season record in that span is 220-217, so just above 500, well under 500 in the tournament. IU has made the final only once in 2001. I had to do some math there, which they lost. The only other time they had won 2 games in a single Big Ten tournament, or the last time I should say, was 2003. That was before last year. As I mentioned, they seem to break the curse. And an interesting note, I love this. This is a fun little trivia note. Nebraska is the only team between IU is going to play one of Minnesota, Maryland, and Nebraska. Nebraska is the only one of the 3 that the Hoosiers have defeated in the Big Ten tournament. And that was in Indianapolis in 2020 when they won 89-64. That was the night Rudy Gobert tested positive for COVID and the entire world unofficially shut down, which means 2020 is the only time since winning the NCAA title in 1987 that IU has won its last game of the season. I love that. I love that stat. Minnesota is 2-0 against IU, and I don't have to remind you of the Hoff-Arbor game. And then Maryland knocked IU out of the Big Ten tournament in 2015 in Chicago in their only meeting between the 2 teams. Let's take a look at this bracket. I've mentioned who they're going to play, but shout out to IUBB Trivia. Go give them a follow if you aren't already. I love those little nuggets and the little trivia stats that they shared in that one. Here's a look at your Big Ten tournament bracket. Hoosiers come in as a 3 seed at the bottom of the bracket. Hope you're ready to stay up late for some games because they're going to be the final game on Friday. Starts off on Wednesday, Ohio State versus Wisconsin, Minnesota versus Nebraska. That game does matter for the Hoosiers. That winner will play Maryland on Thursday, and that winner will play the Hoosiers on Friday. So IU could potentially play Minnesota or Nebraska or Maryland. Of the 3, obviously you want to play Minnesota. They've been the worst team all year, even though IU barely escaped with a win against them. IU also beat Nebraska in the only meeting between the two teams, and they won pretty handily. That was December 7th. That feels like 2 seasons ago that game happened. I believe Xavier Johnson even played in that game, to let you know how far away that was. IU had Trayce, Miller, Xavier, Galloway, and Race as their starting 5. Galloway had 20 points in that game. Tamar Bates had 19 points off the bench in that game. Boy, I would love to see both of those things happen. Trayce had a modest 12 and 10, and the Hoosiers won by 16. So, yeah, please, let's have that happen again. The outside of that, they didn't play well against Maryland, but it's that weird thing where nobody played well against Maryland at home, but Maryland on the road is just not good. What's Maryland like in a neutral court? I don't know, probably closer to their road form, but that's most likely who they're going to face just based off seeding. Though again, you can't really predict anything in the Big Ten. They lost to Maryland 66-55. It was one of those frustrating efforts where they just kind of look lifeless. And it was Jalen Hood-Schifino's worst game of the season. He was 1 of 12, 1 of 14 from the field. So Maryland's a team the Hoosiers can beat, but this IU team can beat anybody in the bracket. They can also lose to anybody in the bracket. I think that probably just describes the Big Ten in general this year. If they win that game, they will face either Northwestern, Illinois, or Penn State. Again, they lost to Penn State. They lost both games to Northwestern, and they beat Illinois twice. So I would assume Illinois is the team you want there. Trayce had a field day against them in both games. IU played Northwestern good in the second half both times and played them awful in the first half both times. So, it's an evil footing, but IU kept spotting them 20-point leads in their games. Penn State is such a weirdly fascinating team. We may talk about them more if IU plays them, but obviously they went berserk from 3 against the Hoosiers and won that game. So I don't really want to face them again, but I think Indiana could beat them. Out of the 3 teams, I think I'd probably prefer Illinois. I just think IU matches up well with them, but they can beat any of the 3. And then obviously if they make it to the championship game, you're most likely going to meet Purdue in that one. But again, it's a crapshoot. Maybe it's Michigan State. Heaven forbid it is Iowa. That is the one team I do not want to play in this Big Ten tournament because Iowa has some sort of voodoo powers over Indiana this season. And we saw what happened when we played them last year in the Big Ten tournament. Jordan Bohannon isn't there to chuck in a half-court 3, but Connor McCaffrey is. I'm sure that'd be the one that'd do it. But we'll see how things shake out. We'll be around all weekend to maybe do a couple shows. And I'll make a note now. We're going to go live on Sunday, Selection Sunday. Prepare for that. If you guys want to jump in, we can react. I'm debating right now. I may wait until later on so that we can react to IU men's team and their position and be live as the women's team is drawn as well so that we can talk about them being the 1 seed. We'll play it by ear, but be ready on Sunday. We're going to go live around the time of the selection show. I'll get a firmer plan later this week, but hope everybody joins in on that one. It's a fun time of year, guys. It's March Madness time. No better time to be a college basketball fan, and we'll be here throughout the week. So thanks again for making Locked On Hoosiers your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out our brand new podcast, Locked On College Basketball. Experts Isaac Shade and Andy Patton bring you everything you need to know on and off the court. Plus, hear from big-name experts, coaches, and players throughout the basketball landscape. Locked On College Basketball, available on YouTube and wherever you get podcasts. Follow us on Twitter if you have not already. Subscribe to the podcast. Leave a quick rating and review. Most importantly, everybody, I hope you all have a fantastic Wednesday. Let's have a wild Big Ten tournament that plays out in IU's favor for once. But as always, most importantly, you know the deal. LEO.